Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our presentation. It's something that we do annually to welcome our families. Some are new to the process of a Committee on Special Education, and some are not. Some have older kids and probably have gone through the process before. But for those of you who are new, it can be a bit daunting. Some of the lingo is different. CPSE is not quite the same thing as CSE, but we're really here to welcome you as sort of a committee and a family of educators from the Chappaqua District, and to reassure you and let you know that as your little ones enter into the district, they're going to be in outstanding hands in their respective elementary school buildings. So we are really looking forward not only to seeing them, but honestly to seeing all of our children next year. So it's going to be a really exciting time for everyone. I am Karen Smith. I am new to the district. I am Director of Special Education and 504 Services. So we're so happy to have you here this evening. And Ellen, I don't know if you'd like to say a word.
Hi, everyone. Darity, I am the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel Services with the district. It is such a pleasure to join you all tonight and really just welcome you to our district and our school community. And we are so grateful that you've chosen to entrust us with your children. And we hope that tonight is informative and helpful to you, but also know that we're here. We're an email and phone call away. So if you ever have questions, please reach out to one of us. So enjoy the evening and thank you for being here with us.
So hi, everyone. I'm Rosa Amendola. I am the CPSE Chairperson. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you as well as your beautiful children just through meetings or, classroom observations. Part of my job, besides chairing meetings, is to oversee the 3 CPSE chairpersons in each of the elementary buildings. And if you can unmute yourselves, we have Dr. Nancy Chapar, who is the school psychologist and CPSE chairperson over at Grafflin. Nancy, you want to give a wave?
Hi, everyone.
We have Jennifer Mezzincello, who's the school psychologist and CPSE chairperson at Roaring Brook. And we have Trisha Harry Persad, who is the school psychologist and CPSE chairperson over at West Orchard. So we should all look pretty familiar to you all. So before I start the PowerPoint presentation, I know we do have some representatives from our special education PTA. We have Tracy Potenza and Gina Malgrim. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Is there anything that you'd like to say?
Hi, Rosa. Thank you so much for having us tonight and allowing us a minute to introduce ourselves. So my name is Tracy Potenza. I am the Special Education Committee Chair for the PTA this year. And Malcolm is here as well. She is the vice chair and will be the chair next year. Our committee's goal is basically to communicate on behalf of the special education community with the PTA executive committee and with CCSD administration. So we meet monthly with Ellen and Karen, and we try to really work with them to make sure we're representing any concerns or avenues we'd like to explore together to promote parent education and positive advocacy that parents and students can do for themselves. So we have monthly events. This year, for example, we had an event, a speaker on ADHD, a speaker on testing and scoring, and we're hoping to have another one on anxiety in the spring. And we also had an evening with the CCSD administration to help parents prepare for annual reviews. Gina, would you like to add anything?
Well, I echo everything Tracy said, and I look forward to working in the chair position next year.
Thank you for having us, Rosa.
Sure, thank you for being here. So we'll also take a little bit of time to introduce everyone around the Brady Bunch screen. Shall we start with Grafflin School? I think the easiest thing to do is for me to just call out your name and introduce yourself. Is that okay? So Debbie Allspa, you're first.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Debbie Osba. I'm the assistant principal at Grafflin Elementary School.
You all know Dr. Chapar, who's the school psychologist. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Ty. I'm a special education teacher at Grafflin, and I'm currently supporting kindergarten and first.
Allison?
Hi, I'm Allie McCarville. I'm the speech language pathologist at Grafflin School.
Okay, we can move on to Roaring Brook, right? All right. We have Tanya.
Hi, my name is Tanya Wilson, and I'm principal of Roaring Brook. Good evening.
Ross.
Hi, I'm Ross Cooper. I'm the assistant principal at Roaring Brook.
We met Jen already. Faye.
Hi, I'm Faye D'Ambrosio. I'm a special education teacher at Roaring Brook, and I'm currently in kindergarten.
Okay, thank you. We can move on to West Orchard. Alyssa?
You forgot me.
Oh, Anne, how can I forget you? Sorry, Anne.
Here. Hi, I'm the speech pathologist at Roaring Brook.
Did I cover everyone at Roaring Brook? Oh, Jillian.
Hi, I'm Jillian Park. I'm the occupational therapist at Roaring Brook.
Okay, moving on to West Orchard. Alyssa?
Alyssa Stover. I'm the assistant principal at West Orchard Elementary School, and I am so very much looking forward to meeting you and your children next year.
We met Trisha, so let's go on to Chrissy.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Warner, one of the special education teachers at West Orchard, and I am also looking forward to getting to know you and your children next year.
Kristen?
Hello, Kristen Mongello. I'm the speech language pathologist at West Orchard.
Are we saving the best for last, Laura?
I can introduce myself as being the physical therapist district-wide, Laura Cassidy. So I get the pleasure of being at West Orchard as well as Roaring Brook and also Grafflin. So nice to meet everybody.
Well, you're actually not the last. We have Nadia Bufa.
Hi, Nadia Bufa. I'm in English as a new language teacher at West Orchard Elementary School.
Did everyone introduce themselves? Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. So this is supposed to be Karen and myself. How did I do, everyone? So welcome. Here we go. One of the things that I want to mention before we get into the presentation, and, we're going to talk a lot about the process and, next steps and what you're going to expect and some of the things that you'll be responsible for in terms of paperwork. We'll get to all of that tonight. But I think that the most important thing that I want all of you to know is that we are prepared for your children. We are aware of the continuum of skill development, and we're prepared to meet your children where they are. Some of your children may be coming into kindergarten already knowing how to read. Some of your children may not be. Some of your children may know all the letters of the alphabet, uppercase and lowercase. Some of your children may not. So wherever they are, we're fully capable to welcome them, love them, support them, embrace where they're at and their skills at this current moment, and dedicated to move them forward. And remember, preschool is a time of exposure of skills. All right, they were exposed to lots of different skills. It's kindergarten where they'll learn to master them. So with that being said, this is our agenda for tonight. We've done introductions. We will review the transition process. We will talk about what to expect in kindergarten. So exciting! We will talk about the school age continuum of services, next steps, as well as answer some of your questions and address some of your concerns. So what makes Chappaqua very unique is our inclusive practices. We're committed to prepare all students for productive lives as full members of society. So it's our obligation, and we truly believe this, that we need to provide equitable opportunities for students with disabilities so they can receive effective educational services with the supports, aids, services that they need in the general education classroom. So the district supports students with disabilities in general education classrooms in their home schools and provide the specialized instruction as outlined in their IEPs within the general education class. So in order to accommodate the needs of all the students, we're going to get a little technical now. And I want to just give you some background information on special education, federal regulations. If any of you have ever heard of IDEA, the Individual Disabilities Education Act, all of these regulations dictate a lot of all of what we do in terms of special ed and the offerings that we provide for your students. So there is a continuum of programs and placements that are available. So I want to show this to you. If it will allow me to. Oop. Not quite sure what happened there. Okay, so I want to show you this. This is a continuum of special education services. It's a pyramid. And at the top, you'll see that there's general education. And some of you might hear of the word least restrictive, well, the words, the least restrictive environment. And that is always our goal. When children with disabilities are placed with placed in programs or given services, our goal is always to provide these services in the least restrictive environment, which is in that general education area on top there. And as you go down the pyramid, that's where we consider more restrictive placements. So your child could be in general education, but receive some support in the class. And that might mean a push-in service. For example, Kristen Mangello, a speech pathologist, might be pushing into the classroom to work with your child if that's something that we deem is needed. Children might be pulled out. Jillian Park may pull out your child if he or she needs occupational therapy services and work with your child individually or in group. And then there's special classes with mainstream opportunities. And then you see down there, oh no. Okay, do you see it down there? There's a black bar that's covering it. Is it covering it? No, it went away. So on the bottom, oh, it came back. On the bottom is day schools, residential, hospital schools, homebound. So that's the most restrictive placement that you can get. And this pyramid, it's fluid. It all depends on the needs and services of your child. Listen, it could be that your child needed a lot of services, but then as he or she grew and developed and the services took effect, your child might need less, or depending, that your child might need more. But the goal is always to go up. Okay? So let's talk about the process. Now that we had a little bit of an explanation of what regs are like. So the first thing we have down here is, please don't forget to register for kindergarten. If Ross or Tanya or Debbie or Alyssa can unmute yourselves, has registration already started for kindergarten? And if not, when will it start, if you have an idea?
I believe registration is taking place the week of March 15th.
Okay.
Does someone want to correct me on that?
You are correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
The week of March 15th is when registration will begin.
Thank you. And everyone has to register, even if your child is in the system and is receiving CPSE services. You still need to register for kindergarten. All of you already should have received a packet of information from Kathy Bevilacqua, our famous Kathy Bevilacqua, whom I'm sure most of you have spoken to more than once. And that packet of information was sent to you, and it's called a CPSE-to-CSE transition planner. One was sent out to you as parents, and another was sent out to your children's teachers. And we will collect that information. So please, your homework is to please send it back to us as soon as you can. And then what happens is, remember when I said that part about us preparing for your student, for your child? This is the part that I'm also talking about. Your homeschool team is busy reviewing your child's charts, progress reports from their related service providers, evaluations. They're going to be reviewing that packet of information that you're sending back to us. They're also going to be able to speak to your child's current providers, speech providers, OT providers, PT providers. And depending on COVID restrictions, I'm not quite sure what they're like for each of the preschools. We usually go out and visit your child's school. However, if they're not allowing us in-person observations, we will ask if we could observe them through a remote platform like Zoom. We're not quite sure if they will allow us to do that, but we will try to observe them in person or remote. But be rest assured, if we can't do either of those, we will be reviewing all of their charts and information and speaking to their teachers. So I want to talk a little bit about when the CPSE will convene. And panelists, please, this isn't the Rosa show. So if anyone wants to unmute and add, please do so. So when you convene for your child's annual review meeting, you're going to see your CPSE chairperson, right, who you've been working with, and you will also see me, and you will also see your child's teachers and providers, as well as some representatives from your homeschool team. And at that CPSE meeting, there will be discussions, of course, about all the great progress that your child has made, right? But then there'll be discussions about what still needs to be done. And depending if regression is noted, your child may be recommended to receive summer services. Very important. If you do not know if your child is regressing, if you've never heard of regression, what does that mean? How do I know? This is your opportunity to please contact your child service providers. Talk to them because they're the ones that are responsible for collecting that data and to present it to the committee to determine if substantial regression has been demonstrated and warrants summer school services. Okay, so whether your child ends CPSE on June 25th and may not need summer services, which is okay, whether your child needs summer services and ends CPSE in August, either situation, your child ages out of CPSE. He or she is too old. Imagine that. Imagine that your 4 or 5-year-old is too old. So at that point, they age out. And at that meeting, that's why I'm there, because the committee might recommend that your child be considered under the Committee on Special Education Committee. So it's a different committee now because they're considered school-aged. They've aged out of preschool, and now they're entering school age, which starts in kindergarten, and that's CSE. And then at the CSE meeting, we will make a determination if your child is eligible to receive services under that committee. Is there anything that any of the panelists would like to add in case I wasn't clear on the process?
Rosa, can I just mention?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello from Roaring Brook. Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to mention that in some cases, when we are considering, and Rosa, I apologize if this is something that you're going to touch upon a little bit later on in the meeting, but there are many children who may not be eligible for the Committee on Special Education, which oversees school age students, but may be eligible for building level services, which don't fall under the jurisdiction, for lack of a better word, of the CSE. But we have a wealth of services available to us within the building. And I'm sure you'll talk a little bit more about that. I just wanted to touch upon it. So sometimes parents are a little bit apprehensive about a child not being eligible for the Committee on Special Education. But it looks very different in an elementary school where we have all of our providers and all of our services available under one roof and, in the building.
Jen, that was my next slide.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect intro to it. So yeah, that's the benefit of all of the providers being under one building. Think of CPSE. Oh my goodness, you have a speech provider from TheraCare. We have an OT provider from Achieve Beyond. So they're from all different agencies, and it's so hard for all of them to communicate, right? But the benefit of now coming into kindergarten, all of us are under one building. And we offer, what's great about Chappaqua is that you don't need an IEP to be eligible to receive what we call school-based supports. So these are all what we call building level supports that are offered to all general education children. And I wrote down some of them here. Parent-teacher conferences. We have team meetings. Response to intervention deserves a little extra attention because it's a very important committee in our buildings. Response to intervention teams are multidisciplinary teams in each of the buildings. All 3 of the elementary school buildings have them. And teachers bring up students of concern to the RTI team. And together, they generate goals. They talk about ways to progress monitor these goals. And of course, these goals are developed in the areas of your child's needs. And then they could recommend interventions to meet those goals. And those interventions could be something like what we have here, AIS, intervention services in reading, intervention services in math. It could be some language improvement. It could be building-based support services such as counseling. It could be that your child needs small group work, such as social skill development. We even have what we call banana splits group to help with certain issues such as children going through divorce or grief. So we have a variety, and this is really just a few. Depending on your child's needs, we do have a variety of building-based supports that the RTI team can recommend for your child, and then they monitor your child's progress. Pretty nice, huh? All right. So, as Jen said, there's a possibility that your child may not qualify for CSE. But if they do, CSE is a little different than CPSE. With CPSE, when your child was classified, their classification was preschool with a disability. That was what they were classified as. But under CSE, it's a little different. They have to fall under one of these 13 classifications. We've done this for how many years, Jen? And every year we always forget the 13. We always get remember 11 or 12, so I got smart.
I bet you have them there.
Yes, and I wrote them all down here. So these are all of the 13 classifications that the committee would would consider when classifying your child. So there's emotional disturbance, there's a learning disability, other health impairment, speech or language impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities. I'm not going to read them all to you. They're all here. So if your child is designated through the Committee on Special Education, right? He or she who's given a classification, one of those 13 that I just mentioned, then let's talk about some of the special education services that are offered in the buildings. So we just spoke about the school-based ones that are available to all the general education children. Now let's talk about some specific special education services. Okay, so did I skip a slide? No, I didn't. Okay, so these are some of them. We have related services. And what related services can be, they can be done on a consultation basis. They can be done and provided on an individual basis, group basis. They can be provided in the classroom. We call that push-in. We can provide it outside of the classroom. It's called pull-out. They're not so fancy words. And these are some related services we offer. Speech and language therapy, no different than what's offered at CPSE. Counseling as a related service, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and others. Consultant teacher services is something else that we do offer. There's direct, and then there's indirect. So let me just take a minute to talk about what consultant teacher services are, and then we'll go into co-teaching, the co-teaching model. So direct means that it's specifically designed, individualized, or group instruction provided by a special education teacher to the student with a disability in the general education classroom. All right, this goes back to that whole inclusive model we had talked about. The instruction is designed to enable the student to better access and to benefit from the general education classroom. So that means, in other words, simpler terms, the special education teacher pushes into the classroom and directly provides the service to your child, okay? Then there's indirect. And that is when the special education teacher provides consultant services to the general education teacher to help them adjust their learning environment and modify the instruction to meet the needs of your child and their IEP goals, okay? So I hope that was clear about the difference between direct and indirect consultant teacher services.
So Rosa, can I just mention that many of our, some of our students who receive CPSE services will have a SEIT, a special education itinerant teacher, right? So that is not a service that is available under the Committee on Special Education. In lieu of a SEIT, we offer these different models of special education support, if that makes sense. So a SEIT is not a service that's available for school-age children who receive special education.
Right. So our SEITs are special, we call them special education teachers. And then let's talk a little bit about the co-teaching model. I think I have, do I have a picture here? My computer is a little laggy. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Chrissy Werner right here. Chrissy, right here, this is at West Orchard, and this is what an integrated co-teaching classroom looks like. Pretty cool, right? You see the two teachers? Well, so Chrissy here is the special education teacher, and you see here is the general education teacher here. And so this is an intensive level of special education support, and it's intended only for those students with very significant disabilities affecting several areas of functioning like communication, behavior regulation, academic achievement, adaptive behavior. Student participation in the integrated co-teaching model is recommended by the CSE for students requiring a high level of collaborative support in order to access the general education curriculum. So this is a general education class, but you see how this is one way the special education teacher is providing service to the students by just some small group work here. Okay. Any of the panelists want to join here? Chrissy, you want to say anything here? You're looking good with your Ugg boots there.
Well, we certainly have had enough snow.
Yes, yes, yes.
I can't wait to put them away and take my flip-flops out.
Yes.
So what's that?
Do you want to speak a little bit about what it looks like in kindergarten?
Sure. So co-teaching is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I absolutely love it. This year, I'm working with Chrissy Vanzo, who is one of the general education teachers. And together we plan our lessons, and we take a look at, how they could be modified or scaffolded for students with special needs. And it's a really nice model because the students get to access the grade level curriculum and material while receiving support from a special education teacher. And it's also really nice because the students are all together in one room and they have this peer model to learn from. And that, to me, is the most important part of the co-teaching model is the kids really learning from each other. And there's that constant flow of, from large group to small group and meeting the kids where they are and getting them to where they need to be. And it's very fluid. And, it's not always that I'm taking the special education students and the general education teacher is taking the, general education students. We're mixing all the time. So if there's a student that has a strength in math, then Mrs. Vanzo would take them during math into the larger group. Here, the groups look very small because this is, under our small cohort this year. But typically the groups would be a little bit larger.
Lisa and Faye, thanks, Chrissy. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'll just add, it's Faye D'Ambrosio. I'll just add that for the parents, and what is similar for your children in CPSE, so the focus in the classrooms, when we're talking about scaffolding and modifying, just know that we're speaking to any goals that we put on the IEP. So just like your child has goals on their current IEP that the SEAT or the service providers work on, that's very similar at the school age. So your child will have goals either in the social arena or the academic arena, and are the times that we target the pushing into the classroom. So when you hear us talking about the modifications, just know it pertains to your child's goals and also program modifications as well.
Thanks, Faye. Lisa, do you want to add anything?
No, I just think that parents should know that whether it's a consultant teacher or a co-taught model, there's an awful lot of collaboration going on, throughout the day as well as the week. Teachers get together to talk, to celebrate the successes and to look at where we might need to modify the way we present materials or modifications or visual supports. And the parents are part of that process. So, because they often hear things at home. So we often, involve parents in those discussions through team meetings and, other ways. We used to have parents come in, but, this year it's kind of different. But the parents are a big part of, working with children with IEPs in kindergarten.
And here again, if your child is eligible for an IEP, besides us determining whether or not he or she needs or is eligible for consultant teacher services or integrated co-teaching. We will also discuss whether or not they are eligible to receive related services. And we talked a little bit about these: speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy, parent counseling and training, counseling. If your child has significant behavioral issues and it's impacting his or her ability to access his or her education, we might even talk about creating what's called I don't know if any of you have ever heard of FBA and a BIP. So it's a functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention plan. So again, depending what your child's needs are, we as a collaborative team, meaning us, all around this Brady Bunch screen, and as well as you, will sit down together to see how can we address your child's needs through the general education, building supports, or through special education. The one thing before we take questions or concerns, I did invite Nadia Bufa here tonight because of her work with our English language learner population. And Nadia, I want to give you an opportunity if you would like to say anything for our families whose children may be eligible for your service.
Sure. So when you register for kindergarten, you will fill out a home language questionnaire. And that is just, the New York State requires all families that register for school to fill out this questionnaire. And it's for the school to see if your child speaks or understands a language other than English. So if you identify that your child does speak a language other than English, one of the ENL teachers in the district will have a parent interview as well as a student interview to determine if we should give the NICETEL, which is the state's assessment to identify your child as an English language learner. I'm here today because sometimes you can have an IEP and you may also be identified as an ELL student. And we meet as a team. It's called the Language Proficiency Team. And it's a team that's made up of the school psychologist, the director of special education, a special education teacher, an ENL teacher, and the classroom teacher, as well as the parents, to determine if ENL services are required and the process, and that would be part of your child's education plan. Thank you, Rosa.
Yeah, thanks, Nadia. And I also wanted to ask Kristen and Allie and Anne if they can speak a little bit about kindergarten screening, because that's something that also takes place.
Yeah, sure. So every kindergartner during their kindergarten year will receive a speech language screening. And that is a way for us, to get some updated information. Even if kids had services in pre-K and maybe they didn't qualify for kindergarten, they still do a lot of growing. They do a lot of growing over the summer. So it's a good way for us to get updated information about where their speech and language skills are. And with that information, we really try, especially in kindergarten, we want our kindergartners to be in their classrooms, first and foremost, as much as possible. So, really this is information for us to gather, and if there's any concerning information, we talk to the team, we talk to the teacher, sometimes students are monitored by us. So yeah, that's the process. I'm not really sure how much you want me to go into it, Rosa.
No, that's fine. Allie, Anne, is there anything you want to add to what Kristen said? I want to give you a chance to speak.
No, I think Kristen got it all down.
Right. Now, there's also a literacy screening. Is that correct?
Yes. So I'm not sure if someone else wants to jump in, but our kindergartners do have literacy screenings as well throughout the school year. So we're closely monitoring those early literacy skills as well for all students.
All right. Is there anything that any of the panelists would like to add before we take any questions or concerns?
Can I mention two things?
Go right ahead, Jen.
One is I would just like to encourage anyone to reach out to any of us with any questions that you may have, either general questions that might come to mind after we wrap up this evening, or questions that are a little bit more specific to your child. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And the second thing that I would just like to note is that it's almost March. So this process will be kind of gearing up over the next few months, but we work very collaboratively and we don't intend for anyone to have any surprises. So we'll reach out, we'll speak with you before your child's meeting. We'll certainly be in touch, and we'll be sharing information with his or her preschool teacher and service providers, as applicable. So we're all going to be on the same page and working collaboratively, up until and through your annual review meeting and your transition to kindergarten.
So Kathy is starting to get her invitations ready and sent out to all of you. We are starting our CPSE meetings, annual review meetings, late April. So please expect for the meetings to start around that time. Karen, how would you like to address the questions? Would you like me to read them out?
You're welcome to do it, Rosa. And what's funny is the first question that came into the chat box actually was something that I was going to talk about as well, which is Rosa had mentioned earlier that the designation of preschooler and school age is not one that we have any degree of flexibility over. So once a student is school age, they are considered by the state to be a school age student. We can't retain them in preschool, but we do have families every year, a couple who want to give their children, the gift of that additional year in preschool, and that is absolutely your right to do. And if you choose to do that, the committee would still convene, and if your child were still determined to be eligible for special education services under school age CSE, they would be entitled to receive their related services within their home school building. Is that correct, Rosa?
Yes. So the parents would arrange with the related service providers a time to bring the child into the school to receive OT, PT, speech, whatever the related service is.
If anyone is, I would just like to suggest that if that is something you're considering, if you're considering having your child repeat a year of preschool or not coming to kindergarten in the fall, if you could reach out to your building psychologist, I think that might be helpful to just kind of talk through what that might look like and your different options specific to your situation.
Rosa, that was the only question in the chat box. I just think, if we can remind everyone, the parents, if they have any questions, and they're welcome to use the chat box to ask any general questions, anything that's specific to your child. If you want to ask that, later or at a time in that you can do that individually, you're welcome to do that as well.
We have another question that just came in.
Yep. Rosa, are you looking at that one? I don't know if the principals and you want to talk a little bit about how the students are grouped together and how the classes are created.
I'll leave that to Alyssa and Tanya and Debbie and Ross. So the question is, how does the classroom placement work? How do we decide which special ed kids are grouped together and with which general education children?
All right, I'll take it on.
Thanks, Alyssa. It's starting to sweat here, yeah.
It is a very thorough and lengthy and complex process, which is probably why nobody wanted to bite at answering the question, because it is definitely multifaceted. So when it comes to grouping together students with IEPs, we're going to look at their IEPs closely. We're going to take into strong consideration the services that are being recommended, the program that's being recommended. We're going to read through what all of their strengths are, their interests, their needs, and try and make really well-informed decisions about which students would thrive in being in a classroom together and which students might need a different setting based on their needs. And then we look at all of our classrooms as inclusion classrooms, because all of our students, whether they have IEPs or not, come to us with unique skill sets and strengths and needs. And so we try and put together classes where the students complement one another. Our classes are heterogeneous, and our classroom teachers are magicians. Kindergarten teachers are very, very special, and they are skilled at meeting the needs of all of their students. And if at any point, as Rosa mentioned before, they feel like they need some support or have some questions, we have a really strong community and team. They can go to the response to intervention team or any of our service providers. They can come to us as the school administrators. But the placement process, it goes all summer until we feel like we've really got it right.
Rosa, there was a question about posting the PowerPoint presentation. We had chatted earlier that we were going to post it, and as well, the special ed PTA would do the same. So it will be available as a posted PowerPoint presentation after we're done. And there's a question as well, and I don't know, Rosa, if you or the assistant principals want to talk about if a parent holds their child back for an additional year of preschool, and then they enter into kindergarten a year later, but during that first year, as they age in, they've already been classified. My understanding would be that you would simply hold an annual review and make a recommendation for the following year for services, whether or not the parent chose to access the services that first year. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So when your child is designated, it's the same as CPSE. With CPSE, we would hold an annual review every spring. So even if you weren't able to access those services because the schedule just didn't allow for you to transport your child to the elementary school, don't worry. We'll have an annual review that spring, and we'll decide on which services your child needs for the following year.
And what I don't know, again, if one of the assistant principals want to talk about kindergarten retention, my understanding is that's always been a building level discussion between the building administrators and the parent, but I don't know if Alyssa or Debbie or Tanya, you want to speak to that?
So the reason I haven't been quite so vocal is because this is my first year. So I'm just learning the way, but we have had some preliminary conversations about students being sort of retained in their existing grade. And we would look at grades. It's a pretty large conversation to decide if that's what's best for the student. If I'm answering the question correctly, if that's what you're asking.
And also, if you are able, to transport your child to the elementary building, you will be working with the related service provider that will be providing the service, and you will schedule, the best time that you can bring in that child. Sometimes it's first thing in the morning, in the afternoon. It all depends on the availability of the service provider in terms of a group that may be appropriate for your child. So it's a conversation.
Yeah, and usually our practice has been that if children are staying in preschool and they're going to come in for related services, we really do our best to try to schedule them fairly early on so that we can work with you as a family to make the schedule that is most successful with, that integrates as well as possible with their preschool schedule. And, in terms of children and being retained in preschool, that's really an individual decision. I mean, it's really a parent decision. Our obligation is to educate your children when they're school age, and we welcome them with open arms, no matter how ready or slightly less ready they may be. But we are happy to have them and to work with them, as Rosa kept saying, wherever they are. There are certainly are pros and cons, and people make those decisions about keeping their kids back for a year, and that's entirely a family decision. It's definitely something you all should decide as a family, and then just simply, as Jen said, share that information with us when you're ready and when you've made that decision, and we'll work with you. You still should register and go through the process. And as I said, if your child is classified and eligible, we would simply, and you chose not to access services during that first year, we would hold the annual review and we would then make the determination for the following year. So it's still a good idea to kind of remain within the system. Does that make sense, Rosa, what I said?
Yes, yes. And I'm just looking at the questions as you're also speaking. Please still do fill out that paperwork that we sent to you. Even if you decide to hold your child back, we still need to have his or her CPSE annual review meeting. So we need to have all of that information in order to make an informed decision for your child. So yes, please fill that out. There was a question about if you decide to send your child to kindergarten, is there a potential for, can your child repeat kindergarten if you're finding that your child is not progressing? That's a building level decision. That's not something that we could, discuss here. That's something that needs to be discussed with your home school team, administrators. That's the most that I really can answer in terms of that question.
Alyssa, you had mentioned earlier about the kindergarten registration. Parents, you reach out and send something to parents, correct? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, they'll receive a communication directly from the school.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. I mean, I'm looking through, and I think we've gotten to most of the questions, but I would reiterate what Rosa and Jen and everyone have said. At the building level as well as at the education center. If you have additional questions or you have individual questions, you always should feel free to reach out to any one of us. We are happy to discuss the process or any of the concerns that you have. The building people are absolutely experts at welcoming new and incoming kindergartners, and they can reassure you and let you know what the process is like, and let you know how well, and we will so well take care of your children when you give them to us, because we are so privileged to have that opportunity, and we really appreciate you sharing them with us. So thank you for that.
And the best day is the first day of school, when they come in with their sparkly new backpacks and new sneakers and their little tags on their backpacks that says which teacher and class they're in. That's the best day ever, that you entrusted your children with us, and we can take over to continue with supporting them and helping them.
And they are as excited as can be.
Yes, they are.
Absolutely.
Anyone on the panel want to say any kind of final last words before we sign off for the evening?
There is one more question, Karen. It's about significant regression. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I saw it just popped up.
Where is it?
It says, can you explain the significant regression required to qualify for summer services?
Would you like me to answer that, or do you want to answer that, Karen?
Oh, no, go right ahead, Rosa.
So after a break, right? So say the February break or the holiday break, right? There's a 1 week or 2 week span that your child was off and didn't receive services, okay? When your child comes back from a break, We collect data to see whether or not your child regressed in any of the skills that they had attained prior to going on that break. If your child had regressed and it took your child a substantial amount of time to regain those skills after that break, and I would say a substantial amount of time, Karen, what would you say about?
Well, are you saying what the state criteria is in terms of what's significant? It's really 8 to 12 weeks, right? So it's that we are making a best guess about how long it would take a child to recoup those skills in September if they did not receive those ongoing or continuous services over the summer. And as Rosa said, it's really a professional judgment by the service providers working with your children who know them best. And what they really do, as Rosa said, is they use data points, sometimes, you know, weekends or long weekends or holiday breaks. And we estimate based on what we see during that year, what kind of regression they might show over the summer. And you'll be part of that conversation as well. Anybody on the panel, any last words of wisdom?
Karen, if I could add, the Chappaqua PTA will send out information about joining the PTA. And when you sign up, you're able to subscribe to the special education newsletter that we send out once a month, and it will have resources as well of the events we're hosting or events that are done by outside providers.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little shout out to that group because they are phenomenal. They are organized, they are communicative and collaborative. The presentations that they put on and the communication that they share with families and others in the community, it's outstanding. You're really fortunate to join a group that works so well to really put together information and presentations and that kind of thing that are informative and helpful for families. So you really have a very strong group. I encourage you to join them.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rosa.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.